And here we are live, all you happy people on this planet and beyond. And I just got a pop out saying that Hangouts on Air is going away August 1st. So I'll have to try to figure out how real live streaming works, I guess. That's Google for you. You get to learn how something works and they take it away. Well, this is the July live stream for supporters. So far, we just have Darth, but that's cool. How you doing, Darth?
I'm doing all right. You're cutting out a little bit, but I can still hear you a little bit.
Okay, maybe if I get closer to the microphone. It looks like we already got some people in the chat room. Remember, if you do a super chat with that funky looking $sign down at the bottom, that is guaranteed readout. So, what you got going on, Darth? Hello, Darth. Can you hear me?
Nothing much. I was watching Naomi Brockwell's coverage of the.
Yeah, I'm
Hey,
here.
are you
It
there?
sounded like you cut out there for a second. Naomi Brockwell's coverage of the.
Oh, I think my internet might be bad tonight. I don't know. The coverage of the Libra hearings in Congress.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen any of those, but I was trying to do a little reading up on the coin to see what it's all about. I mean, it's not a proper cryptocurrency, I think, as people have covered, because it's not permissionless or anything, but I guess we'll see how it goes. One thing I like about it.
I can barely hear you.
Should I turn my volume up? Is the volume fine? Let's see, maybe You know, it's amazing. We've got all this really fast internet, and yet we can't get audio to come through worth a darn. And yet, like, if you listen to, like, radio shows from 10 years ago or whatever. Okay, is that better? Am I coming through better now? Hello? Can you hear me now? Am I coming through better now? Oh, dang it, because Windows is messing with my audio. I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe there's a setting where I can tell it not to do that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's Windows or Hangouts or something like that, but hopefully you can hear me. Because like it used to be, if you had a radio host on like an actual professional radio station and he had to come in remotely, he could do it over what was called an ISDN line. And that was a digital line. It was 128 kilobits per second, which is nothing compared to today. And yet he would sound exactly like he's in the studio. And so, I mean, that's the issue. We're obsessed over, oh, we got to get all these megabits per second. Oh, you know, the sound's dropping out. We need more megabits per second. Well, that's not it. It's packet loss. The packets just aren't reliable because that ISDN line, you had a clear channel all the way through. Okay, Esso in the chat room. I thought he was going to be joining us, but oh, and we just lost Darth. Oh, well. Pognassum goes ahead and asks this question. How would you deal with abandonment in case of movables? If you drop a pencil in the wilderness, how long can you leave it before it's considered abandoned? The guideline I always use is just to remember that all of this is about how you deal with a controversy. And so imagine yourself in front of a judge or an arbitrator or a DDRO or whatever, and you're like, he took my pencil. You know, if your pencil was laying there 5 minutes, you could probably say it. If it was laying there 20 years, you probably don't have much of one. So, but yeah, he says, you know, clear cessation of intent to bring the pencil back under control. That's the thing about property. Property isn't just about a declaration of ownership. A declaration of ownership necessitates an intent to future use. So it's like, you know, I own my house, not just because I'm living in it right now, but because I intend to living in the future. So if I go away, what does that mean? If I go on vacation for a week, well, lots of people go on vacation, and I mean, if it still has electricity and everything else, that's an indication that I'm coming back. If I do have to leave for like 20 years, I'm not living there, but I want to pass it on to my kids or something like that. And I intend to come back. So I've kept it up, and I've got someone cutting the grass and keeping things clean, and there all the furniture's covered and everything. That's one thing. But if the grass in the wilderness have all grown up and the house is falling apart and there's a tree growing up through the middle of the living room, it's probably reasonable for someone to think I'm not coming back. So all right, Devin Rojas says I just got ear rape. What happened? Am I coming through too loud? Or I was trying to adjust my volume earlier because Darth said he was having trouble hearing me. I think his internet connection is kind of bad though. But that goes to what I was saying. I mean, video might be a different thing, but for audio, anyone's internet connection should be good enough for radio quality audio. It's just that, just the way ISPs are, they're just not that reliable. They want that huge, nice big thing when you do the speed test on it. Oh, look, you've got 200 megabits per second. Yeah, but how reliably are those packets getting there? And how many packets end up going in? Ear rape was from Darth coming in very loudly for a second. Okay, well, there he is. Welcome back, Darth. Hopefully all your stuff has worked out.
I'm trying a different laptop. I don't know if it's the laptop or my internet, but we'll see.
All right, we'll try it. Oh, I remember Real Player Justino. Oh God, that was terrible. We've come a long way since then.
Yeah, so I was watching Naomi Brockwell cover the Libra hearings in Congress, and was wondering what do you think of Libra in general, and have you seen any of those congressional hearings?
I haven't seen any of the congressional hearings. I've been looking at the stuff at Libra, and I forget where it was. Like, I don't know if it was RT or it was one of those the clueless news bimbo has the flunky on from Libra to talk about it, and like he was saying things like, well, the problem with cryptocurrencies is, who do you trust? There's no one to trust. And he didn't quite get the idea. There's no one you need to trust. That's the whole point. Neko wants to know what's Real Player. You don't want to know. It was a painful time for the internet. It used to be like the standard for internet audio and video, but anyway, it's coming to a lot of criticism because it's not permissionless. It's not even a proper crypto. It's really just a virtual currency, and it's not really being run by Facebook. Facebook is kind of heading it up, but there's something like upwards of 30 different companies that are partnered into it, including I think like MasterCard and Visa, PayPal, Uber and Lyft, things like that. No banks so far, but I guess that's probably to be expected. Yeah. But yeah, so there's a lot of it to criticize as a cryptocurrency, but I do think it's kind of cool that right now they're jumping out in front of the other cryptos, between the other cryptos and government, waving their arms going, hey, we're right here, come regulate us, and so kind of bringing all this stuff to a head, because one of the things that's been holding cryptos back is because if you're a business and you take crypto, what's going to happen when the SEC or the IRS or whatever comes knocking on your door, or whatever country you're in? So, I mean, if it helps all of that come to a head faster, then that would at least be a good thing.
Where could I send a webmaster to learn about how to incorporate Squirrel into their website?
Well, we're still getting a lot of the pieces together for servers, but the best place to go is squirrel, sqrl.grc.com. For those who don't know what we're talking about, we're killing usernames and passwords. They're going to be dead. All right, they're probably not dead. Probably not all the way dead. There'll probably always be a place for them, but instead of having like all of these breaches where all of your passwords get away from you, imagine instead if you just, I could probably do a demonstration of it in a second, but if you just, get, uh, you just have an app that just kind of logs in for you and it just kind of happens and it does so cryptographically. The only thing the web server has about you is a public key that's just a bunch of random mess. So if a hacker gets it, they can't use it to log in as you. But yeah, so squirrel.grc.com is where that is. Maybe I can show you a demo here if I can get that set up. If I can get to there's a demo server, which is all this is that I'm gonna show you, but you can actually log into websites with this. The forum I just mentioned, squirrel.grc.com, and I've actually got it running on all my websites. So if I go to manage the podcast, I just log into that with Squirrel. So anyway, let's see. It just says click here to log in with Squirrel. And what it's doing, you probably can't see this because it comes up in a separate screen. Hang on a second. I'm just unlocking my Squirrel app. And then when that goes through, the only thing that happens is that. This is the demo website. As you notice, I do not have a username or password. Those are completely blank, and yet I was able to log in. This down here, it says users site-specific Squirrel ID, parentheses, public key. That's all it is. It's a public key, and that's how this website knows about me. And if you think, hey, I'm going to, steal that public key and log in as Shane there, well, you won't be able to because you need the corresponding private key that goes along with it. And it's cool because it makes a different public key for every website you visit. So, if you had like one on Amazon and one on, PayPal or something like that, and hackers got a hold of them, they wouldn't be able to use Squirrel to figure out what the corresponding IDs were. So that's it. That's really all you should have to do to log in. There's also a QR code. I don't have my camera active. I might show you that sometime when I have my camera active, logging in through my phone, doing it that way. But yeah, that's another option. You can use your phone and scan a QR code. When we're ready and we got all the
Steve has
pieces
been talking
together,
about how the government is looking to ban encryption or make it have backdoors in encryption. The government wants to.
Well,
you think there's any chance that might happen?
That's the going dark thing, and they've been making pretty much all sorts of governments have been making noises about that for years, and we've been covering that. And it was like a couple of years ago, it was one of my state's senators, Richard Burr, a good Republican, worked with Dianne Feinstein of all people to make, I think it was called Burr Feinstein, that was all about, oh, we're going to stop the going dark problem. Government needs a secret key to be able to look into everybody's encryption. But that's not a new thing at all. That goes all the way back to the 90s. Bill Clinton was trying to do that. And the thing is, how can they stop it? How can you stop people from using Signal or WhatsApp or Squirrel or Bitcoin or anything else?
What were your thoughts on Ross Perot? I didn't know much about him other than the fact that he died recently.
He was well, he was interesting. Um, I mean, he wasn't a libertarian or things like that, but I mean, he did a good thing. He got people talking about things like the deficit when they just weren't before, and the whole thing about, oh yeah, Bill Clinton and the Republicans, they got the budget under control and all of that, and they got the deficits down and everything. That never would have happened if it hadn't been for Perot out there making noises about it. So I can give him his props for that. But all right, I'm catching up on chat. So let's see.
Do you have anyone? Sorry.
What's that? And Nathaniel Peterson says, "What's your
Do you
view
have
on
anyone
Trump's tweets
specific you'd like to
involving
run
the
for
squad?"
LP?
Eh, not really that I can think of. Not as long as Harry Brown stays dead. But but I'm guessing by the squad, he means those four women, people of color, that he made that oh so racist tweet about. You saw that, didn't you, Darth? Kind of funny.
Sorry,
He
you're
tells
cutting
them,
out. I think my
"Oh well,"
internet's
he
just
told
really bad tonight.
ah, but it's interesting. He told them. Well, he didn't actually say this. It's a quote mine, but he told them to go back where they came from, and oh no no no, that's so racist, and yet they still feel like they can tell us to go back to Somalia.
Yeah.
I think we've got lag here. I think that's part of our problem.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but the thing is, he
Did
was
you ever talk
what
about
he
in one of
actually
your?
said was, yeah, I think we're lagging past each other. What he actually said was, you all your parents or whatever came from all these socialist countries. If those countries they came from are so great, why don't you go back there, fix the problems with them, then come back here and tell us how you did it? Of course, he was trying to cram all that into 240 characters, and that always works so well. But yeah.
Have you ever talked about one of your videos that you became ANCAP?
Um, it's not really a straightforward question. It's just kind of, I would have to basically start when I was a kid and go through to when I was in my 30s and just, kind of gradually made it over there. There wasn't like an aha moment or anything. Wolf Knight has trouble talking to socialists and communists, explaining why wage slavery isn't a thing. Can I get your take? Well, it's simple. It's a voluntary agreement. The worker agrees that his time and effort is worth this amount of money. Of course, he would like to be paid more. Everyone would, but of course, he's not always able to do that. And conversely, the employer would very much like to be able to hire people. They talk about employer hiring people is 10 cents an hour. They'd love to do that, of course, but they're not going to be able to. So, there's the equilibrium there. So, but it's not slavery because it's voluntary. That's the thing.
Yeah, when people say
They can pass all
corporations can
sorts of
go whatever.
involuntary things like minimum wage, but that's sorry, what were you saying?
Is it people? My friends always tell me corporations can get away with whatever they want, and like, what do you think they are? The government?
That's a good answer. But yeah, they put all sorts of involuntary stuff like minimum wage and stuff like that, zoning laws and all sorts of things to get in the way of people working at jobs and creating their own jobs and creating their own businesses and things like that. But that's not slavery. Oh, but people voluntarily working for wages somehow. Why can expenses be paid in crypto and somehow automate expense report? I don't really get what you're saying there, Justina. Oh yeah, Devin beat me to the slavery requires violent coercion, but when you work at a job, it's completely voluntary. Simple as that. Yeah, it pretty much is. New Hampshire is pretty good because you've got the Free State Project, especially in Keene. They've got a lot of activists there, but they still got a long way to go. There are all sorts of crazy laws. I don't know. It's like, you talk about libertarian on one end with complete freedom and then totalitarianism on the other end, but it's not a one dimensional thing. I mean, you've got Hong Kong that has a lot of business freedom and it's number one on, the index of economic freedom. You have the Seychelles, which also has a lot of business freedom and privacy protections, but it's a lot further down. So, I mean, how do you figure that out? The Scandinavian countries, are not socialist. They're market economies. They rank about where the US does, but they've got this different mix. They've got higher taxation and more social programs, but they've also got a lot more business freedom as well. So it just kind of all depends.
Shane, you ever been to a hacker conference like DEF CON? And
Devin
if you
says under
haven't, would
comment.
you like to go to them?
Um, at this point in my life, I don't think I have the courage. That's kind of a young man's game. And the thing is, as soon as you step into one of those cons, any piece of hardware you take with you is subject to being hacked. I mean, that's just how it works.
Get that Faraday cage.
Yeah. Yeah. Which one was looking at? Oh yeah, under communism it's work or die. It's work or die under anything. I mean, that's how the universe works. That's the second law of thermodynamics. Anarchist Republic of Cospaya. Never heard of it. Neither have I heard of UMF University in Guatemala. I've heard of Guatemala, just not UMF. All right, I think I'm caught up on the chat now.
Do you have any IT certs?
Oh, let's see. I think they've all expired. I think I got A plus and Network Plus back before they expired, so I should still have those. Security Plus, something expired. I had CNE, MCSE, all of those. I had some Linux certifications. They're all expired now.
Did you get my message explaining trust your technolist?
Trust or what?
Trust your technolist. It's a phrase from originally it's from the movie Hackers, and then the podcast Hack 5 started using it to sign off.
Okay, yeah, I think I remember that, but I don't remember that line from Hackers.
It wasn't a spoken
It's
line.
been
It
a while since
was
I've
on
seen it.
like a poster. It wasn't a spoken line. It was on a poster in the background.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I might have missed that. All right, yeah, let me show this to you just in case you didn't believe me earlier. I believe I can show this to you without giving away any horrible secrets. So if you look here, this is my podcast site, and so when I'm ready to post a new podcast, I log in. It's a WordPress site, but notice that I have the WordPress plugin. and I just click sign on with Squirrel, and I activate my app. And did you see me type in a username and password? No, you did not, because I did not. And yet, boom, there I am,
That
logged in.
that's awesome.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? That's all you should ever have to do to log in. Not,
That's awesome.
log in. Log in now, do the two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication has started to get really annoying for me because, I mean, I like Authy, but the problem with Authy and Google Authenticator and all that is after a while you get so many sites. I got like a few dozen sites. I'm constantly scrolling through this list looking for the site I'm trying to log into. But Squirrel, you don't have to worry about any of that. Just that single factor is all you need, because the reason for the security questions and emailing you the link and texting you the code and all that, the reason for all of that is because passwords aren't secure. Users can't come up with good passwords, and even if you do have a password manager, even if you do have a password manager like LastPass or something like that and randomly generate them, you can't depend on the servers to secure them. And the problem with the two-factor authentication is it works on shared secrets too. Squirrel doesn't. Squirrel gives the servers no secrets to keep. So, what were you saying?
Yeah, sometimes I'll get emails from people like, "Can I reset my password?" and they give me my original password in plain text, and I'm like, "Come on."
Well, and there have even been password breaches because, like, if you randomly generate this nice long password, if they don't limit you to 12 characters or whatever, but you've randomly generated this nice long password in LastPass, and they just use something like MD5 or some old algorithm like that to do it. Well, you're probably still pretty safe because your password is so big and so random, it would take them forever to breach it. But there have been cases where the breaches happen, and guess what? They store the passwords in plain text. It's like,
Yeah.
And I mean, texting you a code, texting is not secure.
Have you ever
at
used
all.
YubiKey?
I haven't used one personally. I mean, I'm familiar with them. They sound pretty cool. But Yubico has actually expressed an interest in incorporating Squirrel. I mean, they're not going to until it has a certain level of adoption. But yeah, they know about Squirrel. Steve Gibson went over there one time and showed it to them, and they just loved it. Oh, and there was something else. I think someone had posted this to the Squirrel forum. He's over in Europe, and Europe is passing this thing where, like PayPal and all of those others, have to have this kind of I forget what it's called, but the logins have to be so secure, and they gave them until like September to make these secure logins, and they're like, we can't possibly do that because A, we don't have any technology like that, and B, 3 months isn't long enough to do that. And so people are thinking, hey, that's an opportunity right there. Tell them about Squirrel. But yeah, that's Europe. They just think they can pass a law that will magically do things like that. Trump's tweets about cryptocurrencies. Yeah, he's not much of any. Trump's not really any of a bigger idiot when it comes to crypto than other politicians. So, what were you saying, Darth?
Yeah, Bitcoin is created out of thin air, but the Federal Reserve, no, that's different.
Oh yeah, that's totes different. Because don't you know the dollar maintains its value, don't you know, even though it's only worth 4% of what it was in 1913. But it maintains its value.
Yeah. Gosh, I hate this lag.
I think when I set this up, I didn't choose the lowest, like no lag possible, but I chose like the one above that where you could still do the DVR thing and go back. But so, I mean, that should have taken down on the lag, but like I say, our internets are so
on my end.
Yeah, internet connections are in so many ways just so unreliable. Because, like I say, it's all about the megabits now, and they don't care about packet loss or packets showing up in the wrong order or buffer bloat or anything like that. It kind of reminds me of where digital cameras were like 15 or 20 years ago, where they were all about the megapixels, 2 megapixels, 5 megapixels, 80,000 megapixels. And a lot of photography people were like, no, there's other things that matter too. Other than the megapixels, there's the sensor size, there's the lens and stuff like that. So, eventually they got to the point where digital cameras were competing on those other things too. But for a while, it was just megapixels. I think that's where we are now with the internet. Everyone thinks it's all about the megabits, and there's other stuff that matters. Yeah, Zero. I don't know if how
You ever heard
post
of mesh
scarcity.
network routers?
Oh yeah, those are pretty cool. Yeah,
Do they actually work?
but
I mean,
yeah,
I've never
Zero's talking
used
about
one.
a. Yeah, I mean they work in about the scale of like a house, even a fairly largish house. If I had a large business that was like huge floors and multiple floors and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't set the whole thing up on a single mesh router. I'd probably subdivide the network down, but for a home, it's fine. But anyway, Zero's talking about post scarcity. I don't see how post scarcity is at all possible considering the desires are unlimited. So no matter how much stuff we have, we're always going to want more. That's just how human beings are. Using Squirrel at work to log
You
into a
saw
work PC, well, your work would have to set that up. Yeah. What's that, Darth?
you saw Infinity War Endgame. You saw Infinity War Endgame.
I haven't seen Infinity Wars yet. No, we're still getting caught up on our
Do you
Avengers
know?
movies.
Do you know about the main villain Thanos?
Oh yeah, I've seen all the memes and everything.
Yeah.
When will ISP fix buffer and lag issue? When they get some competition, I guess, or when people start demanding it. I think the cable companies are starting to get really, really concerned about 5G because they seem to be working a lot faster now to get DOCSIS 3.1 out. But I mean, when you're talking about the ISPs, you're really only talking about the last mile. And I don't know how many of these are problems at the ISP level or how many of them are on the back end, because the big problem is when you have to go from your ISP onto the internet backbone, because your ISP has to pay for that, and they generally pay by the kilobyte. So they're going to try to minimize that as much as possible and try to manage that as best as they can. So
What kind of music you into, Shane?
I'm eclectic. I like all kinds. Kind of the music I grew up on, I guess, is the music you come back to, and that's prog rock, Pink Floyd, Billy Joel, stuff like that kind of era. But I mean, I'll listen to jazz, classical, whatever, and some modern stuff too. Yeah, I kind of like it all. Devin, I don't know who Kirk Wilcox is. Somebody did a video on me and libertarian anarchism, and he's also done some colors with Rucka. So, yeah. Any money to fix internet packet loss from ISP? I don't understand what you're asking. I mean, your ISP has to fix it. I'm sure it's just too expensive. I'm sure that's the thing, because they would have to set up reliable connections through the internet backbone. I would imagine that if you're connecting to a server that has your own ISP as hosting, like if you're on AT&T and the website you're connecting to is on AT&T, it's probably going to be really good. But I mean, they talk about the throttle. That's where the throttle is. It's going from your ISP out onto the backbone because, like I say, they pay for it. All right, I'm caught back up with chat. Anything else you're wanting to talk about, Darth?
Can't think of anything at the moment. If I do, I'll let you know.
All right. I got an article we can start to cover if it looks like we're slowing down too much.
What's it about?
Oh, I don't see much going on in the chat room. Hang on, let me get to it. Where is it? Here we go. And share that. Come on, share it. Share it. Yep. I get that little spinny around mouse like I do with Windows. Come on, Windows, finish doing whatever you're doing so I can use my computer for what I want.
Have you ever seen Futurama?
Oh, I love Futurama. That's awesome.
Remember that scene where they send something and it's like, please wait 3 to 5 seconds for delivery. And the kid's like, more like 7.
Yeah. When does Shane get a Bitcoin patron pay? Well, when they can do recurring payments. I mean, you can do one-time payments at donate.bogosity.tv, but you can't really do recurring payments is something that's still missing. Dash says they're working on that with Evolution. BitTube says they're working on a solution for that. And this is just not my whole Hangouts window. Apparently everyone can hear me fine, but my whole Hangouts window has just gone white and I've got that spinning cursor and I can't really do anything else.
You ever used a Bitcoin debit card, Shane?
I haven't used the debit card, no.
Pretty neat. You get to use
Yeah.
Bitcoin in places that won't normally accept it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, the problem is, the debit cards and the exchanges and everything like that, they've all got that KYC stuff going on, the know your customer laws. And it's like, so you're sending, you want me to send all these different companies pictures of my driver's license and pictures of me holding driver's licenses to all these different places who have shown that they cannot properly secure my passwords. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
Hey, Shane, I gotta go take care of something real quick. I'll be right back.
All right. Hey, I am not getting any response out of the Hangouts window, so I think I'm just going to have to talk from here on out until I can get it back. Now the chat window's going. Well, if I can't see new chats, and Darth isn't here, what is Windows doing? What is your... Maybe if I go back to my task manager, I'll figure out what's something weird running, taking up all my CPU. Oh, don't see anything. System idle process is over 90%. Yeah. Okay, well, I can barely see updates in the chat. It's kind of white on slightly darker white, but I can make out Devin saying, if you want, no, I'm sorry, that's Justino. Have you watched Billions? I haven't seen that yet. How much more power government has over hedge funds? Yeah, they really put the screws on that. All right. This may end up with my computer crashing completely. So if I go away and this Hangout ends early, then that's what's happened. My God, I hate Windows. Thank you for that Upton Sinclair video because at school I'm pretty outspoken libertarian. I always get Upton Sinclair thrown at me. I know exactly how you feel. I've just been getting it thrown at me for a few more decades than you have, but yeah. Okay, I cannot scroll through the chat, but the chat is popping up with new chats as they're coming in, so that's something. What on earth is happening with this? I mean, a lot of times you get that not responding thing in that circle shaped mouse pointer that goes around and around. And then it does it for a couple of minutes and then it stops and it's not stopping. It's doing it.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah, the jungle is total fiction. Upton Sinclair didn't make any bones about that. Who has done more damage to the libertarian movement, Rand or Hoppe? Huh? Well, I mean, I do have to say that there are a lot of libertarians who got into it from Atlas Shrugged. I don't really know of anyone who got into it because of Hoppe. I know plenty of people have been turned off by both. So I don't know. Probably Hoppe, I would say. Just because Rand brought more people into the movement to begin with. Not that she wanted to. She didn't like libertarians. But
Have you read Atlas Shrugged?
I slogged my way through the first 7 chapters and gave up. It is not a very well written book. I mean, it's like because I read Anthem, and Anthem at least was a short story, so it wasn't that difficult. But I was really always wishing that Rand had been a better writer, so it wasn't so difficult to read.
You like fiction?
Oh yeah. One of the things that I can credit with getting me towards the libertarian / anarcho-capitalism thing is Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. That's one of my favorites. Or Stranger in a Strange Land is good too. All the Hitchhiker's Guidebooks. The later ones weren't as good, but they were still fun to read. I really wish he had he had lived to write that last Dirk Gently book, because like they published a book there was like a bunch of his essays and stuff like that as well, which is really good. Douglas Adams, I mean, but they also published like what he had written so far of that next Dirk Gently book, and it looked like it was really good. But then he just died out of the blue of a heart attack. I mean, wasn't any like it's not like he was sick for 2 years or something like that. It was just kind of out of the blue. Rand exposed a lot of people to the idea of the net. Yeah. And she kind of undermined it a lot as well, too. But okay, when can I have control of my computer back?
That you're not really a fan of Kokesh. Is that right?
No, not really. And if you talk to the people,
what about him just turned you off?
It basically look at what he's done to other libertarians like Larkin Rose, and talk to the people who've actually worked with him and worked on his campaign. The guy is a complete authoritarian, and he has like even done things where publicly he's welcome. It's like, yes, anarcho-communists are just like us, and yeah, he's not at all consistent or principled. He's really just kind of out to make himself look good. Hey, Justino says, what's worse about Hoppe? And Devin says his immigration stuff. Well, I mean, the immigration stuff, I think, is part of his of this larger idea that he has that somehow, even in an anarchist society, the people would be able to still band together like a government and stop people from doing peaceful things if they didn't like that. If it was just so simple as you disagree with them, like there's something where they weren't quite convinced on the nap. Oh well, we got to get them out of here because we can only have true nap believers in our society and stuff like that. Because it's not even that we have to keep them out. If you have a native person in your country who decides they don't fully believe in the nap, you have to kick them out. So, yeah. Yeah, I think that's true, Zero. The people who are being turned off are not really the people who were truly looking into it. They're looking for an excuse to bash libertarians, but it's especially dumb in the case of Ayn Rand, considering she wasn't a libertarian and she hated libertarians. Am I ever going to have control of my computer back?
You an Ubuntu guy?
I like Ubuntu, yeah.
What's your primary operating system that you use the most?
Well, Windows, just because my editing software only runs on Windows. Like something on my computer is.
Use?
What's that?
What editing software do you use?
Vegas. I think if I can just find the right process to whack, I mean, if I whack Chrome, then then this live stream is over quickly. But I don't see
that could be a problem.
I don't see anything that's really running. Carbonite's running, but it's never caused this kind of problem.
I recently just finally switched to Win 10.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where they pushed down another update, which, okay, they needed to. There were those couple of 0 days that Russia was exploiting like crazy, but ever since then, at every patch Tuesday, I go through this. And it takes like a week to get it back under control.
Is Ubuntu your favorite Linux distro?
It just kind of depends. I've got Ubuntu on my laptop. On my server, I've got Debian. Just because I think it works a little better for that.
Isn't Ubuntu based on Debian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole different philosophy behind it, though. Ubuntu, like, for example, they make a new release every 6 months, despite, how it's ready. Debian won't do a new release until it's ready. Yeah, Russell says you can use Task Manager and check what's used in this. Yeah, I've been doing that, but the idle is over, 90%, and I don't really see anything that's. I cannot tell in any way what is doing this. All right, so I'm not going to be able to share any screens or anything.
Darn.
We'll just have to talk then. It doesn't want me showing you Squirrel. I don't know about Squirrel, but there is something about BitTube that Chrome does not like, because like on their old site, they tried doing an Android app on that, and Chrome kept kicking it off of the store because they said it was, a porn site. It's like, we're not a porn site. And they've got the airtime extension. Chrome keeps kicking it out of the web store. Chrome also has a task manager. Yeah, but I can't get to it because I can't get to the Chrome menu because it's all not responding. The recent increase in anarcho-communism content on YouTube, like Non-Compete Thought Slime and many others, yeah, that seems to have a resurgence on it. I think the garbage video I made back in the early Lord Killian days was the first time I thought, okay, this person is actually claiming to be a communist. I mean, hammer and sickle and everything. I was like, that was kind of crazy, and it's now they're everywhere. Oh yeah, I've looked at RAM and CPU. I'm not even using that much RAM. I'm using
I've heard that.
I'm using 15.5 gigabytes out of 31.9 gigabytes of RAM. It's not RAM.
I've heard that Moore's law about doubling the computing power every 2 years is starting to not be true anymore.
Yeah, because what Moore's law actually says is that the number of transistors you can cram into a certain area doubles. And of course, that ends up being a doubling in computing power. But eventually, we're getting the transistors so small now that you're getting to the point where quantum mechanics is starting to take over. And imagine if you had a transistor that was so small that quantum mechanics meant that you could never be sure where the electron was, and so you can't use it. And so that's going to be a while. It's going to hit in like the next 10 years or so until they come out with quantum computers. Jeff Baum with a classic question. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Yeah, IT crowd. I love it. Of course, I can't do that without ending the Hangout. That's the problem.
What were you saying earlier about how Hangouts is going away?
Yeah, they popped this thing up right when I started up and says, yes, Google Hangouts is going away. Hangouts on Air is going away after August 1st. It's like, okay, thanks.
Do you have another one in mind?
Well, I mean, I've got OBS, and I've kind of played around with it a couple of times. I guess I'll have to hit it a little harder and heavier and really learn how it works. Because I've seen people do amazing things with it, and they've got all of these plugins and everything else that show the super chats and, have these little animations of your speech, like a graphic EQ and stuff like that on it. So I'd have to. Yeah, Russell says it's usually the CPU. It's not the CPU in this case. I got plenty of CPU clocks.
Do you ever overclock your processors?
Yeah, but it just makes them too unreliable.
Mm.
Ironically enough, it increases the chance of your computer crashing when you're doing the very things you wanted to overclock it for, like rendering video or whatever.
Yeah.
ID10T error. It might be, although I don't know what a user can do to get that not responding error. Why you have issues with Stefan Molyneux? I didn't really have any with him until he became a trumpeter, and that kind of turned him into a race realist. And he just started throwing logic out the window when he did that. All of the things that he used to know about interpreting statistics just all of a sudden doesn't apply to race and IQ now. Just following suit with tag jokes. Yeah, there are plenty of those in the IT crowd. There was one time where he had hooked up a reel-to-reel tape recorder to the phone, and so they're talking, and then the phone comes in, and the tape recorder goes off, and it answers the phone is like, hello, IT, if you try turning it off and on again. He goes like, oh no, that fixes it. Thank you very much. And then the next one calls and is like, IT, if you try turning it off and on again. And says, yes, I've tried and it's still doing it. And then the tape starts up again. Are you absolutely sure it's plugged in? And oh, that was so they had it like completely automated, so they didn't have to answer the phone.
I need to go back and watch that.
Yeah, that's great. Race realist. A race realist is a racist who keeps trying to come up with a scientific justification for it, and they claim that it's not like their opinion or anything. It's just what the science says. White people are better because science. Yeah. Like one of the things they keep going to is IQ, and if you average the IQ of black people, it's smaller than the IQ of white people. Therefore, white people are smarter, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the main problem with that is something called the Flynn effect. IQs are actually getting bigger. We get, what is it, 3 new IQ points every 10 years. So if 30 years ago you scored 109 on an IQ test 30 years ago, you would score 100 on the IQ test today, because they keep adjusting for that, because 100 is the median. And that means that if you scored, 100 on an IQ test today, you'd be a super genius compared to, people 100 years ago. And it's all sorts of reasons, like especially childhood nutrition and the prevalence of prenatal vitamins and things like that. And it's not just the case that IQs are getting higher. It's the difference in IQs between different populations, like races or the rich and the poor, things like that, they're converging. So, there's just absolutely no reason to think that blacks are genetically any stupider than, as H.L. Mencken might point out, yeah, we're all equally stupid.
They should have the first question be, do you believe in government? They check yes. That's
that's 10 points off right there, yeah. Since I can't scroll through the chat, I need to get these as they come up. Just determinism with a eugenics twist. Yeah, pretty much.
What do you use for testing your internet speed, Shane? Something good that could also do ping.
Speedtest.net is pretty good. There's also a good one at dslreports.com. The nice thing about DSL reports is that it'll get packets from several different servers, so it's a better test of your specific connection than, because it might just be a slow route along the way. But I don't know, Speedtest.net is pretty good. Oh, and the DSL reports one will also tell you about buffer bloat and things like that. Yeah, so like one of the things the race realist says is that, oh, well, it's because white people's ancestors had to live in a colder environment than black people because they came from Africa, which is more tropical. Of course, not all of it's tropical, but that's the idea. You're up in Europe where it's colder and you have to be smarter to survive in that. The problem is, I think it was something like 60 to 80,000 years ago, before out of Africa, there was this freeze. It's pretty much a global freeze. And the entire human population dropped down to, I think, less than 10,000 breeding pairs, all in kind of the equatorial region of Africa. And so we all come from that population. So, and really after that point is where you start seeing, all of the really big and all the tool making and stuff. That you see some of that before, but that's where things really get going. They're like, yeah, that's where we got this hugely overpowered brain that we have. It's not just better than our competition. It was pushed forward because of that. So it doesn't make any sense that we would evolve to be smart enough to survive a global freeze and then have white people be smarter just because Europe is a little bit cooler. So, Wolf Knight, how you doing?
Wolf?
Hey, how's it going?
What was your SAT score? I didn't actually take it when most people wait until they take it their senior year because they know the most. I was part of some program for some reason to take it my sophomore year. And so I made, what did I make on that? 1140, I think I made. And that was enough to get me into any college I wanted to. So I didn't bother to take my junior or senior year. I just let that one stand. I'm sure I could have gotten it higher if I'd waited, but what was the point? Race realists trying to blame minorities for all American culture problems, forgetting they're the majority and have allowed all of this. Yeah, well, that's true. If white people are the majority and they're electing the government to do all that, then I mean, it's funny because they talk about, oh, well, they're dumb, so they're all the socialists. It's funny how the socialists we keep seeing are all rich white people, you know? Our SAT score is important anymore. I think they still are for getting into college. Dane's issue is just net neutrality doing its job. Net neutrality isn't in play. That was repealed.
Internet's gonna collapse and burn, Shane. You know that.
Yeah. any day now. I tried to get people to like say, okay, when net neutrality was repealed, oh, all this bad stuff is going to happen. I kept trying to pin the, okay, when? 3 months, 6 months, a year, what? When? And none of them would like, I think I had one person who said that it would happen in a year. And of course, it's been more than a year. And, you know, so I said, okay, what now? And I haven't heard back from him. So that's how it is. Absolute freedom. Hey, I think that's another name for Wolf Knight, actually.
Yeah, that was me before.
All right. Same guy.
Yeah, I changed my name a while ago, and I don't know why it keeps doing that. No matter where I go, it does it, and then a few minutes later it changes.
Well, if it's any consolation, Hangouts on Air is going away August 1st, so you won't have to suffer with it much longer. Yeah. Yeah, I just found that out as soon as I started this Hangout. It's like, it's going away August 1st. It's like, oh, yeah. Thanks for the notice.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
From what I heard, Google Hangouts from like the very beginning has been straight AIDS.
Yeah. I've got a problem. I think this is Chrome, not Hangouts, but like all my windows, the Hangouts window and the chat window are all that I've all gone white and say not responding, and my mouse cursor is that spinning circle, and I can't figure out what's doing it. I basically can't use my computer, but I can still talk and listen and just barely read the chat. So we're gonna go with that.
Do what you can. Yeah, I actually just recently became a patron of yours, and I actually kind of did it to thank you, because I actually had a problem for a while trying to decide where I was politically, and then I saw you Dappertons and Listen to Reason's video on anarcho-capitalism. I was just straight hooked.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's good to know. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a shame you guys didn't include Hoodie Demon. What a shame.
We kept trying to do. We got him in there right at the end.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, we miss you, Hoodie, if you're out there listening.
Yeah, whatever happened to him? I'm like really.
He dropped off of all social media.
Oh yeah, like
he's
I tried looking for his Twitter and stuff. And
his Twitter's gone. His Facebook. I could still chat with him on Facebook, but other than that, he's just gone. So
yeah.
I mean, not that I blame him as toxic as social media. I think he's actually managed to avoid the worst of it.
It really is so terrible.
Oh.
So just out of curiosity, because I'm noticing, this is a question that's coming up a lot in chat. What is your thoughts on Noam Chomsky? Because I've listened to him a little bit. I don't know much about him.
Yeah,
I know he's very much for anarchism, but he's very much against capitalism.
Yeah, and I mean the two things don't go together. I mean he's basically trying to be an anarchist socialist, and it's not working out. He's one of those that claims to be a libertarian, but he's really a socialist. So
I always thought that too. Is like there's no way that he's actually an anarchist. He's got to be a socialist. Just the way that he talks about economics and whatnot, it's almost textbook socialism.
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
And I just it really is amazing though. Is it just me, or is it there's just been this huge uprising in social media and whatnot when it comes to communism? Is it just me?
Yeah, yeah, we were talking about that before you came in. You know, I was talking about the first video I saw where someone actually. I mean, people always said, "Oh, we need socialism," but I'm talking about the first time I saw someone actually be a a full on communist, showing the hammer and sickle and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then just over the last few years, that's just gone through the roof. And I mean, because I'm a Cold War kid, I remember what the Soviet Union was like. It's like no.
Yeah, it really is amazing. I was actually I actually have an account on iFunny, which is the same name as this, and I've talked to a lot of people about communism, and it's amazing how many people will just instantly go to that's not real
Oh yeah, as soon as it fails.
exactly. And one thing I have to think on this. I kind of agree that these aren't really communist based off the definition of it. Because with communism, it's supposed to be a stateless, classless society where there's just everyone's on a horizontal plane, and the 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 issue that I notice is that essentially Karl Marx says that socialism is the first step to communism, and it bothers me because you basically create a state where the government has a control over everything,
Yeah,
everybody, and it's
yeah,
like
it's a complete totalitarian state. Yeah.
yeah, you really expect them at the edge of the cliff to then just jump off? Like, come
Yeah,
on.
well, I mean that was what it was because they kept saying, well, with the Soviet Union, it's like, oh well, this is only temporary until we build our communist paradise, and then the communist paradise never seemed to come.
Yeah, I just don't get it. It's like, how do you trust? How can you say that you hate the state, but then immediately say, I want them to be so large, and then just give it up?
Yeah.
Like, it's never going to work. That's such a pipe dream.
Or as Nicholas Dorito says in the chat, libertarianism, socialism, pick one. Yeah, because socialism is collectivist and libertarian is individualist. So they're
Thank
just,
you.
yeah, at the very core, they're at odds with each other.
Yeah, it's amazing how people try to. It's like mixing together oil and water. It's like, yeah, for a short time, it may look like it works, but then they just immediately separates.
Yeah.
Well, what do libertarian socialists find so attractive about the libertarian part? I don't get that.
It's just because it's one of those things they find a word that has positive associations and they know socialism doesn't, so they're trying to latch on
Hmm.
to better people. JC Armitage, are you a fan of any tabletop role playing games? I haven't had a chance to play in some time in my younger days. Let's see what I play. I played various forms of GURPS, Champions, Paranoia. There were some others I probably think of. Paranoia is just awesome. Paranoia will absolutely teach you how socialism doesn't work.
Yeah, that's another thing I've noticed too. You always hear people talk about how wonderful these socialist countries are. Of course, before they just completely go to shit. Um, but I always keep wondering is that why is it then if these are such great places, why are people running away from them?
Yeah.
You don't run away from a good thing.
Yeah, you don't see people building rickety little boats and risk their lives to get away from capitalist countries.
Yeah, no shit. Or people climbing the Berlin Wall to try to get away from East Germany and getting shot down in the process.
Yeah, they weren't trying to get into East Germany.
Yeah, they were trying to leave East Germany and they were getting shot as they were climbing over the wall. Like, what the fuck?
Yep.
How is that a good society? Also, I absolutely loved the joke she made about that fucking car that East Germany made. What was it called?
The Trabant.
the Trabant, you fucking have to shake the car to actually mix the oil
Yes.
and gasoline. Holy shit.
Oh my
Was
god.
there any American car in existence that ever required that besides the very first Ford vehicle?
I don't like. Yeah, maybe the Model T and the Model A. I don't know, but
Like, for fuck's
not
sake.
in like the 1950s.
No, no. And that's the thing too, is that the 1950s, that was definitely the height of the Soviet Union, right? It's like that
Yeah, pretty much 50s, 60s.
50s, 60s, yeah. Is just, it's amazing how so many people can defend the process that it takes to get to that, and then when it comes out as that, oh, that's not real, that's not it. Try again.
The only
Another
thing that
million dead
Soviet
bodies
ever
later.
produced that actually worked was the AK-47, and liberals hate it.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's funny because, the AR-15 is the semi-auto version of the M16. And the M16 was such a pathetic weapon that when they were fighting the Afghanis that the Soviets had armed with AK-47s, the joke was you use your M16 to kill an Afghani so you can take his AK-47.
Exactly.
And now you got a real weapon.
Yeah, my grandfather was a Vietnam era vet, and he basically talked about how the M16s they gave him there, and basically you fired one whole magazine, and then you just might as well just smash the whole thing against the tree because it's useless.
Yeah.
The black rifle just looks so cool, though.
It looks so tactical.
Oh, but it makes a grapefruit size hole in someone with a round that's less than quarter of an inch around. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Jesus. Ugh.
That's a good one, Russell. Yeah. We're not dogging, we're mixing the oil.
Yeah, I was thinking whenever you were a little kid and you jumped in the backseat of the car, you have to do that with the Trayvon.
Oh, that was Vietnam, not Afghanistan. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
After you live half a century, the wars just kind of blend together in your mind.
Well, didn't after the M16, didn't we have didn't the U.S. Armed Forces have the M16A1? Wasn't that the one that came afterwards?
That was later. I don't know if that was during Vietnam or when, but
Well, no, during Afghanistan.
And that's the
yeah, maybe by the time Afghanistan came around, yeah, because that was the 80s.
Yeah, the M16 is that like famous one with the fucking grenade launcher under and that big ass front sight front.
Yeah, and the chainsaw bayonet. Don't forget about that.
Oh yeah, the fucking jagged ass fucking chainsaw in the middle. Mm-hmm. Sure looks scary.
Oh my god. It's fun to troll liberals, but you also don't have to troll them. They will be idiotic completely on their own.
That was the thing with me when I really started getting political. It's like trolling liberals it's sort of like eating a lot of candy. It's fun at first, but after a while, it just hurts. It just hurts your mouth.
I have a quickie on the Ford Pinto. That's going back a while, but yeah, Justino in the chat room mentioned the Pinto. And there's also another one, which is pretty much, I think, the reason why I think it's the NHTSA exists. What was it called? It wasn't the Cavalier. What was it? Or was it the Cavalier? The car that Ralph Nader called unsafe at any speed. The Corvair, that was it. How were the 80s? Was it anything like Stranger Things depicts? I'm only like 7 episodes into season 3, but yeah, they actually got it pretty good. It's amazing in season 3, they've got this mall set up and they've got like all of the old stores that don't exist anymore, but they've got all their logos up there in the mall.
Yeah, I'm a late '90s kid, so I'm completely lost when it came to the references and Stranger Things.
Yeah,
Which is funny because my mother loves the '80s. Like I grew up listening to '80s music and shit because she just couldn't get out of it.
Yeah, I don't think you have to get the 80s references to join it, but those of us who remember it, it's like, yeah, I remember that.
Like the only thing I can use to describe my age is the fact that when I was a little kid, we rented videos from Blockbuster, and that's pretty much it.
Were you a gamer, Shane?
Yeah, not real hardcore, but yeah. Of course, the games back then were a lot different.
Yeah, being a gamer nowadays is almost like a requirement.
Back when Castle Wolfenstein was 2D, you know.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were around that time during like Wolfenstein and Doom and shit.
Yeah, way before Doom.
Way before Doom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before Wolfenstein 3D, it was a 2D game that was like on the Apple II and the VIC-20 and all those. Maybe not the VIC-20, maybe it was 64.
I keep forgetting that you're that old.
Well, way to make me feel good there.
Years old, so I'm 21, so I'm a baby.
Yeah. I'm just about to hit 51 here.
Oh no, you're still such a young butterfly.
Yeah,
No, Stranger Things is really good.
I actually haven't watched it that much. I've seen clips because my friend loves it, but I haven't really watched much of it.
Yes, Justino, the Amiga, greatest computer ever made. Man, if it had been the Amiga that had survived and, you know, been upgraded to today instead of the IBM, oh man. Larry Sweet, you mean Leisure Suit Larry? Is that what you're talking about? And those were great.
Leisure Suit Larry was that Italian dude that was like all about the innuendos and the ladies and shit, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I remember
they really pushed the limits of what they could do.
Oh my god, yes.
Oh yeah, double 5 1/4. 300 baud modems. I could out type those things. Because they were half duplex. It was 300 bits per second, not kilobits, bits. And they were half duplex, so you had to you had to type, and then the character went to the computer on the other end, the server or whatever you were on, and then had to come back to display back on the screen. And so it was really 150 per second. And I think it ended up being the equivalent of like 50 words a minute or something. And it was really
slow. Do you know much about the story of Kevin Mitnick, Shane?
Oh yeah. I was around for that.
I saw a movie about him last week called Track Down. It was pretty interesting.
No, I hadn't seen that. Text-based AD&D games. I don't know about AD&D, but I mean, you had Zork and all of those Infocom games. Those were great. Kevin Mitnick literally wrote the book on social engineering.
Yeah. We gotta lock him up because he can whistle into a phone and cause a nuclear war.
Oh yeah. Oh god, that was crazy. They actually said that. That was the case they made for denying him his right to use a phone call in prison because he could whistle into the phone and start a nuclear war.
The shit they think up. I want the asset that feds have. I want that shit. Just for one trip.
If you could start a nuclear war by whistling into a phone, you're doing something wrong on your end. If you're worried about someone doing that.
Quick, he's whistling Yankee Doodle Dan. Bomb.
Oh, 2600 Club. That's going back. So war dialing, I remember that.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, Shane, what were you always like at what point in your life did you start falling into the like ANCAP community?
I kind of answered that at the first. It's not an easy question to answer because it was kind of a lifelong thing. Basically, right. From when I was 10 to when I was about like in my 30s, it was just kind of this slow process. Mm-hmm. I mean, because I didn't have the internet, remember, so I couldn't,
Right.
I didn't really have any way of finding out about, Murray Rothbard or people like that. I could go to the library and check out The Moon is a Harsh Mistress because I was into science fiction
Oh yeah.
and stuff like that.
It was definitely a strange process for me.
Yeah.
Like I started out as like a bleeding heart liberal, and that was mainly because I was raised around my grandmother, and my grandmother is like fucking trademark hippie. Like you couldn't get any more hippie than my grandmother. Like she marched with Martin Luther King
Wow.
during the civil rights movement. Yeah, she has a picture
That's
hand in hand,
awesome.
like 5 feet away from me. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
And I basically was for almost 13 years of my life raised around a woman that told me, Second Amendment only applies to muskets. Hate speech is bad.
Yeah.
Uh, I wouldn't say she was a real hard socialist, but she was very much against capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically for a while I was a bleeding heart liberal and believed all this shit.
Yeah.
Um, and then
War
finally,
Games, awesome movie. I just had to mention that. Justina mentioned War Games.
I've never
Matthew
seen it.
Broderick. Awesome movie.
I'll have to check it out later. Oh, Mr. Dapperton's here. Fucking stop shit now.
Dapperton's here?
Yep,
Oh, there he
typed-
is. I see him.
typed butt sex. Classic.
Hey, Daps, how's it going?
I still have no control of my computer, so I'm just looking at this white screen trying to discern the slightly whiter text on it.
Why does it have to be white, Shane? Fucking racist.
Don't talk to me. Talk to Microsoft. They're the ones that do that. Why does Windows not have a dark theme? Someone tell me that. What's up with that?
Can't you get like a custom one off the internet?
Well, but there's only so much they let you change on those things. And it used to be they let you change everything, like back in the XP days. But they only let you change so much, so you can't have a proper dark theme.
Yeah, what Devin actually wrote in the chat. It's sort of like how my life went. Democrat, really hard socialism, and then as like a really hard pushback, I went Republican, and then I was like, yeah, fuck those guys. Libertarian. Yeah, that was pretty much
I was always like, Democrats, okay, they're kind of cool on this. Oh wait, they believe that. Okay, and Republicans, oh well, they're cool on these other things. Oh, they believe that. No. I was never all that happy with any of them.
It feels like the entire time I've spent in the political community, it's always been an us or them mentality.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of it. Because they don't want it to be about the individual issues, because when it's about the individual issues, they lose.
Yeah, that was really what just immediately pushed me into like far libertarian. It was just like this is such a fucking scam. You're either one side and you give up your freedoms, or you're on the other side and you give up your freedoms. There's no in between.
Oh yeah, all of the stuff about it's well regulated. What part of well regulated don't you understand? I think you're the one that doesn't understand that.
Yeah, wasn't well regulated specifically supposed to be just organized? That was what it meant, right?
Armed and accoutred, really.
Mm-hmm.
Amiga OS would have taken over. Commodore is the perfect example of one of those companies that made absolutely stellar products, just fantastic products, and had complete idiots in their marketing department.
Yeah, a little bit too old for my opinion.
Yeah, definitely Commodore 64 over Apple II. Let me put it this way. You remember that scene in Star Trek 4 when Scotty uses the Mac Plus?
Vaguely.
Yeah, the graphics team were Amiga guys. They loved Amigas. And so they had said, hey, let's have him use an Amiga. And so they went to Commodore and said, well, Amigas are $5,000. And then, we want to charge you like this much for however long it's on the screen and and it would have cost them all this money. And like, forget that. They went to Apple, and Apple's like, yeah, here, have a Mac Plus for free. Do you need another one? And hey, here's this guy. Just tell him what you want. He'll put whatever you want on the screen and display it however you want, no charge. So yeah, that's the difference between Apple's marketing and Commodore's. Commodore's just idiots. And it was funny kind of watching the Mac Plus try to keep up with the graphics they were doing, which would have been a cinch on the Amiga, but yeah.
Have you heard of the podcast Command Line Heroes?
I have not.
I've
What
only
is-
listened to the first 3 episodes, but it's pretty good. It's about the history of Linux.
What is the most libertarian Linux OS? I don't think operating systems have political affiliations. I think a lot of libertarians don't like Ubuntu because of all of the telemetry stuff, the calling home that it does.
Let's make one, Shane. Let's do it.
Facebook Libra, we talked about that earlier. I might do a more detailed video on it. Basically, it's not great as a cryptocurrency, but I like the fact that they're putting themselves out there in front of all the other cryptos to kind of make the government regulate them and bring all these issues to a head.
How do you think crypto is going to do in the future? Do you think it is at one point going to die out, or is it like going to explode into popularity?
Oh, I don't think it's going to die out. I mean, if you look at what's happening in Venezuela, you know, the fact that their monetary system is completely collapsed is making people turn over to crypto. Hopefully it won't take that in the rest of the world, because I don't want to see people suffering like they are in Venezuela. But yeah, format C : the Linux equivalent, you know, so RM hyphen RM, let's see, RM hyphen RF /. That's the equivalent in Linux.
Yeah,
I can type it easier than I can say it.
I think everyone can do that. But speaking of Venezuela, I don't know, I didn't read it all the way, but I saw this article where apparently inflation in Venezuela is so bad and that their currency is so worthless that their own criminals there can't even afford to buy bullets.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is.
If you look at the limit for what you can get on an ATM in a day, it's like $1.50.
How are they getting Bitcoin or crypto in the first place if their currency is so worthless?
They're getting a lot of it from remittances, you know, people outside the country. A lot of it, the Dash is doing like some giveaways and stuff like that. And yeah. Finian says RM-F. That just removes everything in the current directory. The R is recursive, means it gets all the subdirectories too, and / means it does it from the root, so it's deleting everything. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's smart. Make such a destructive command so short and simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can really only do that if you're root. So, I mean, you'd have to put a sudo in front of it. So, you know.
That's true.
Is BitChute decentralized? I don't believe it is. And a lot of people are wondering about DLive and what the heck is going on with that, and they don't have any real answers from that. That's why I just like BitTube and just how transparent they are about everything. Was there any libertarian BBS back then? I'm sure there were. Yeah, BBS is on everything. I didn't really get into it until I got into college and I could get on Usenet. Tom Wood Show, Bob Murphy Show, and Contra Krugman. Yes to all three. Those are great. I always listen to Contra Krugman. I don't have the time to listen to every single episode of the others, but SCO version 5. I remember SCO. That's going back a while. Hey, next subject.
Good question. Oh shit.
Well, I mean, I had an article I could talk about if I could use my computer, but yeah. We just
Let's
got
talk
half an hour
about it.
left anyway, so.
Let's talk about if pineapple belongs on pizza.
Absolutely.
It doesn't. It doesn't. End of discussion. Next topic.
Okay, when Gordon Ramsay on his talk show tells an audience member you don't put pineapple on a pizza, I'm gonna take his word for it.
Did he say that?
Oh, he absolutely did. Yeah, he was
Okay.
ordering pizza for the entire audience, and someone in the audience had the fucking gall to say pineapple, and he immediately went, "Pineapple doesn't go on a fucking pizza."
It ruins the pizza and the pineapple.
Right?
Because pineapple is good, you know.
I love Hawaiian pizza. How dare you? You need to leave.
Hawaiian pizza.
That's fucking ham, fucking pineapple.
No, because like Hawaiian pizza is a bit like Australian strudel or something like that.
See, now I have to try Australian strudel. Let's talk about voluntarism. I mean, there's really not much. I feel like we talk about voluntarism. It's just, I help you, you help me. We both agreed to it. Ta-da!
That's what it is. Is it initiate force? Nope. Okay, we're all right with it.
That's really what it is.
Oh, you might not be personally all right with it. We might criticize it, but
yeah.
I'm gluten intolerant. There's actually no such thing as gluten intolerance. It's called celiac disease. And if you don't have celiac disease, but you think you're gluten intolerant, it's a placebo, or actually a nocebo effect. Because placebo, if you find that like with medicine, placebo means I will heal. Nocebo means I will harm. So if you take a substance and you think it's harming you, but it isn't, that's the nocebo effect.
Didn't know that.
What is agorism? I've never heard of that.
Weed seals up my throat, makes me get red. Okay, that's an allergy. So yeah, you're allergic then. I think you'd be allergic to just about anything.
Agorism is black markets, pretty much, right?
Oh yeah, that's the gray and black.
It's the counter economy, like using cryptocurrency instead of fiat, that kind of thing.
Well, okay. Now that I
Silk
know
Road and Open Bazaar and stuff like that.
Yeah, Finian, I know what agorism. I just didn't know the name for it.
Yeah.
I thought it went. I thought it was allegorism. That's what I thought it was. I thought there was an L in there somewhere, but I'm completely wrong.
Algorithm? Well, that's scary.
Yeah, I was like, that's a weird name.
He invented the internet, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
global warming.
Yep. As long as we stop letting cows fuck, we will save the planet.
We must do everything we can to reduce our carbon emissions. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go to my next talk on my private jet.
It's exactly. I feel like Al Gore was just taking this huge, like, this thing that requires so much scientific research and so much careful understanding about how the world works and stuff, and just using it to get quick buck.
Well, and that's the thing, like they're saying now, is like, oh, well, France had a record hot day. That proves global warming. It's like, okay, now wait a minute. When people point at like a cold, snowy day and ask what happens with global warming, you're like, well, it's not about individual weather events. Well, you know.
That was the thing too. Did you ever see that case? I can't remember which Republican it was, but he brought in a fucking snowball into Congress and said, "See, proof global warming doesn't exist."
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. I don't know much about it, but I'm not utterly convinced that we as human beings are the sole cause.
Well, the actual scientists don't say we're the sole cause. We're a significant contributor.
Mm-hmm. Like I always thought that sure we may we may take some part in it, but I mean we're on a rapidly cooling planet that's changing just in ways that we couldn't understand every single day.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that just 7 billion human beings could just absolutely change the entire planet within like 12 years, as AOC likes to point. The world's gonna end in 12 years.
Yeah. AOC is somebody else who's like, we need to stop all plane travel. Okay, then why are you taking a private jet everywhere you go? Oh, well, I need to be able to spread the message. Oh, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds just like a televangelist.
Yeah.
What was the price tag for that Green New Deal of hers? What was it, another $7 trillion? Was that what it was?
I think that was just Medicare for all. I think the whole thing was like 20 some trillion.
Jesus Christ. And we wonder why a barista, was she a barista or was she a bartender?
I think she was a bartender.
Yeah, it's like that's why you don't go from bartending to running part of the country.
Yeah, she was like a bartender for a year or two, and I think that's the only job she had. And she was like, well, I worked so hard.
Oh yes, pouring glasses upside down into pouring liquid into other glasses.
Yeah, worked absolutely every bit as hard as I worked at Temkin and Freightliner and places like that.
Mm-hmm. Or me when I worked at 7-Eleven. So difficult.
Oh, I mean, yeah, retail. You'll pull your hair out retail, because I worked like Burger King and I worked at a pizza joint and I've worked a lot of places.
Oh yeah, I worked in Southwest Florida. It's like basically 90% of the people there were like rich old people, and my God, you want to talk about condescending and entitlement?
Oh, yeah.
Shit.
Speaking of Florida, did you hear about that city that got hit with ransomware and decided to pay it?
Oh, there's been several cases like that. Several cities and counties just in the past couple of months have been hit with ransomware. Someone's targeting them. They say this is targeted.
Oh, yeah.
And some are paying them and some of them aren't. But it's like the ones that are paying them, they were either dumb and didn't have backups, or it would have been so prohibitive to try to rebuild the entire network. It would have been like there was one case I was reading about where it would have cost them $1.2 million to restore everything. And the ransomware people were only wanting $700,000, so they paid them.
Oh, Nicholas just brought up something. Yeah, did you hear about the candidate that's running against her in Congress? The fucking new candidate.
Oh, who
Oh my
is that?
God, she's screwed. It's a woman who immigrated from Jamaica when she was a child. I think she was 9 years old. She's also a businesswoman who started her own business.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. How the fuck is AOC gonna combat that shit?
Is she running against her as a Republican or running against her in the primary?
She's running against her as a Republican.
Wow.
But I don't know much about her, but I can almost see AOC just pulling her collar. Just like,
Well,
shit.
because she didn't really have anyone to compete against. She got elected by primarying.
Mm-hmm.
But all Republicans are white supremacists, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Even the ones that aren't white.
Yeah, that's the thing that bothered me most. That's what made me like just leave the Democrat side is I always heard so much talking about guys like Ben Carson, who's an actual Republican, or guys like Larry Elder. I don't know if you've listened to some of his stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But saying like these guys, these aren't real black people because they don't think like we do, and it's like how condescending and racist is that shit? Where
they're Uncle Toms.
Yeah, that's just so terrible. Like with Candace Owens
From people who have never actually read Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah, it angers me. It's like I may not agree with them on everything. That's the thing, is that you can disagree with these people on one thing, but to say that they're not real black people because they don't think like you want them to think. Oh
right,
my God.
yeah.
If that's not
black people all have to think.
I don't know what is.
Black people all have to think the same way, but you're the racist.
Right. That's so fucked up to me.
AOC supported an increase to ICE funding.
I don't believe that.
I don't know, because I mean, just last week she was saying it was like, yeah, we need to end ICE and we need to end the entire Department of Homeland Security. I'm like, wow, something I can actually agree with and get behind. Because I remember a few
And
years
she
ago.
got called an ANCAP for that.
Because I remember a few years ago. I remember a few years ago in the Republican, one of the Republican debates, they asked them, you know, what one government department would they like to get rid of, and none of them could answer the question. So I guess Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is closer to a libertarian than the Republicans are, because at least there's one she can point to.
Yeah.
As I like the joke I made at the time was, if you ask a Republican and a Libertarian what department they'd get rid of, the Republican will stop and think because he's trying to think of one. The Libertarian would stop and think because he's trying to think of which one he should say. Because he wants to get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
Is all of them a choice?
Yeah.
Pick one at random.
What about you, Shane? What would you get rid of first?
What would I get rid of first? I guess Homeland Security is as good as any of them. And I mean, especially if you look at like Customs and Border Patrol. I mean, I've been covering this on the podcast off and on for years. Just they've made the entire, like within 50 miles of the border, a constitution-free zone.
Yeah, I agree with Finny in the chat. I'd get rid of the IRS first.
Yeah, IRS would be a good one to get rid of. I'd love to see a source on AOC supporting increasing ICE funding. I'd like to see a source on that. Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories about, like, there was this one woman, I think she lived in Texas, and she had to go through a border check and show her passport and everything just to go to work and back when she didn't go anywhere near the border, but the only highway on the way to work was through a border checkpoint. That was like 40 some miles from the border.
I got an article from HuffPo saying, again, I don't Huff them bullshit anyway. Like AOC slams Dems for supporting pro-ICE amendment. Yeah, all the shit I'm getting on AOC and ICE is just on her saying that it needs to be abolished.
Yeah, but if that's the mainstream media, they're not likely to. They only look at what conforms to the narrative. Yeah. But still, I do want to see a source on her supporting an increase in ICE funding before I believe it. Please tell me AOC has not defended Antifa. I've never heard her defend Antifa. She might have. I'm not familiar with every word she said, but I haven't heard her do that. Devin Ross says, I've had family members deported. I actually lost a girlfriend one time. She was from Germany. And I really liked her. We hadn't gotten that far into our relationship, but things were looking good. And then they told her she had to go back to Germany. And she was a teacher in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. And they said that they could only let her stay in the country if she could prove that she wasn't taking a job away from an American. And I'm like, well, you know, I've got a book on basic economics you can show them. But the funny part of it was, at the time, Charmeg schools had a shortage of teachers.
Wow.
So yeah, I it was just crazy. It was absolutely, and it's not like, it's not like she was teaching German, which you would probably think they had a whole bunch of German teachers. She was like teaching math or something. she taught. Let's see. She taught math, and what else did she teach? I think she taught math and physics, something like that. But yeah.
Speaking of getting rid of ICE, like me personally, I'm all for open borders. I just have, I would want to get rid of the welfare state first before I would completely do open borders.
See, I got a problem with the idea of, well, you know, we have to put up with this one big government program because of this other big government program. No, just get rid of them.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
thing
we
is
need to get
I would
rid of the
get rid of them
welfare
both.
state too, but geez.
Yeah,
Especially since it's based on faulty statistics, because immigrants, when you look at the ratio of what they take in services to how much they pay in taxes, it's actually a better ratio than natural born Americans. I was about to say Native Americans, but that would sound like I was talking about Indians, but natural born Americans.
Oh, you gotta be PC there, Shane.
Well, it's just confusing.
It is.
Now, what are you supposed to say now? Indigenous peoples or something like that. They've changed. You don't say Native American anymore.
I mean, does it really matter?
Well, I mean, it's like my grandma didn't have a racist bone in her body, didn't have any ill feelings toward anyone. She always called them Negroes because that was the term of the time. Think of the United Negro College Fund was started during that time. Then that was wrong. You couldn't call them that. You have to call them colored. That's the C in NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored Persons. But no, that was what you have to call them. You had to call them black, and then you had to call them Afro-American. And then for some reason, Afro-American was bad. You had to go back to calling them black, and then you had to call them African-American. It's like, I don't think you've got the point. Changing what you call them is not going to end racism in society.
Yeah, I got a guy I work with who came over here from Haiti when he was in his 20s, and he hates being called African American because he's like, I'm not from Africa, I'm from Haiti.
Yeah, he's a Haitian American.
He's like he prefers the term black because it's like it's the closest thing to me.
Yeah.
And
that's like at one point I was talking about what I can't think of her name right now. She played Martha Jones on Doctor Who, and I mentioned she was black, and someone said she's not black, she's African American. I'm like, she's not American, she's British.
Yeah, like what the fuck? People should be free to travel as long as they're peaceful. I agree with that.
Yeah,
100%. Again, it's
Where's
just a
the
matter
left
as long as they don't violate anyone's natural rights. I mean, who really gives a shit?
Yeah.
Weren't the left supposedly big free speech supporters in the past?
Yeah, it's amazing how things have flipped. Because like when I was growing up, and like in the 80s, you had in the Reagan administration, you had Edward Meese, and he had the Meese Commission on Pornography. What was he? Was he Secretary of State? He was someone in Reagan's cabinet or something, one of the department heads or something. But he had the Meese Commission on Pornography, and they were going to do all of this. You had to stop these TV shows and movies and magazines and everything else. And Hustler magazine was bad and stuff like that. And
yeah, my childhood was at the tail end of that whole thing of like violent video games called school shootings.
Yeah,
which is all bullshit. It's the research on that does not support it whatsoever.
If anything, it's if anything, it's the opposite. Playing violent video games makes you less
an
like
outlet. If I had a bad day at school, there was nothing that made me feel better than running over a hooker in my brand new Inferno.
You know what it was when I was growing up?
Yeah.
No, what the big source of all the violence was when I was growing up?
What was that?
Bugs Bunny cartoons.
No way.
I am perfectly serious. Bugs Bunny cartoons were violent, and they had to censor all of these scenes when they showed them on TV.
The only thing that I would consider from like that era and that type of cartoons that was fucked up, Vinny just pointed out Tom and Jerry. That shit, the final episode of Tom and Jerry that I watched was horrifying.
What was it?
Fucking Tom and Jerry both like they try to get the girlfriend of their dreams, and they both get rejected, and they end up just really sad, and they sit on a railroad track and let themselves get run over by a train.
Wow, I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of depressing.
It is depressing. They were so fucking sad. It was like, no.
But no, if you listen to go find a copy, I think it's on YouTube, the Hank Williams Jr. song Coalition to Ban Coalitions. Libertarians should love that song because it's all about that. But the second verse, that's what he's talking about. All the people who wanted to ban Bugs Bunny because they thought it was too violent.
Yeah,
and it was causing kids to grow up to be violent, causing all the violence in society. The censorship of the life of Brian. That's a funny one, DJ Ernst, because there was a town in Wales that had banned the movie from being shown for like 30, 40 years, something like I forget how long it was. And they finally, they had a mayor who finally said, okay, let's lift the ban. And it was shown at the same time. And the mayor was the actress who played Judith in the movie. So when she became mayor, she had the ban lifted. Yeah, I agree, Dorito. It's a masterpiece. That's the best one Monty Python did.
I haven't watched all of Monty Python stuff, but I've watched The Holy Grail and Life of Brian, and I almost pissed myself laughing both times.
Go through the Flying. I think they have the Flying Circus. They have it on Netflix, or maybe it's Hulu. One of them has the Flying Circus. All 4 seasons of it, just hilarious stuff.
Or Band Metallica. Oh yeah,
if you
forgot that was an era of things where the people were so against metal music. Like I'm a metalhead. It's like, really? You're gonna fucking say that my music, which is probably like one of the only things that keeps me from like choking people in my customer service job, like you're gonna say that makes me violent? Like, please. Like anyone that's listening right now, like actually go and watch interviews from Marilyn Manson talking about like moshing and whatnot.
Welcome, Darth's clone. We've got 2 Darths.
I bumped my laptop and it immediately shut down. I guess to protect the hard drive or something.
Maybe. Oh, okay. The old one finally went away. All right. There's just one of you now.
Can you hear me?
Yep, hearing you fine.
Cool.
Oh yeah, they wanted to ban as soon as they saw Elvis on the TV dancing. Oh, that was horrible. That was sexual. That was going to leave let all the girls grow up to be sex fiends and everything else. And you look at it today, it's like, what on earth is wrong with that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, my grandmother actually talked about how when Elvis like first started getting really big, they refused to like film him from the waist down because he moved too sensually.
He just moved his hips back and forth when he danced, like most dances throughout human history have been.
Exactly. It's just a case of attempting at social engineering and apparent mind reading. Oh yeah, Devin. Yeah, Star Wars: Clone Wars, favorite cartoon show of all time. That was my shit.
Yeah, I never really got into things. I was never really much of a Star Wars guy. I was more on the Star Trek side of things.
Yeah, I never really got much into Star Trek. It's just Star Wars. I just love the huge battles and stuff like that. Lord of the Rings and Star Wars was my shit as a kid.
Unless Babylon 5's on, I'll turn off all the rest to watch Babylon 5.
I've never seen Babylon 5, but I've heard a lot of good things.
Yeah, the problem is finding it somewhere on a streaming service, because it's like they'll put it on somewhere for streaming and it'll be there for a little while and then it'll go away, and it's like everyone who watches this show loves it. I have shown it to like plenty of people who don't like science fiction and they end up loving Babylon 5.
Is it maybe like a case of like a Studio Ghibli and stuff like that, where it's like whenever they find it, they immediately copyright it, take it down?
Well, no, because it's actually they actually license it from Warner Brothers, so I don't know what the issue is. The license runs out and they can't afford it or something. I don't know.
Oh.
They really need to do a proper, because it was shot on Super 35 film. They need to do a proper high definition transfer of it and update the special effects. It was like the first TV show full time to do full CGI effects.
Yeah, I would be amazed to see. I'm not normally not a fan of reboots, only because it's usually so poorly done and so obviously a cash grab. But there's a lot of movies that I would love to see get redone with modern CGI.
Yeah, well, they did that with the original Star Trek. They did this full restoration on the original negatives, did this high def transfer of all of it. But you see, the effects were shot on the live action was shot on 35 millimeter. The effects were shot on 16 millimeter. So there was this degradation. So they have CGI scenes of it. If you get the Blu-ray, there's the option to show the CGI scenes, and they look really nice. And they've actually made them fit in so that it actually looks like, it not only looks like, the original effects, but it looks like it was actually shot on 35 millimeter film. It looks really nice. They didn't make any artistic decisions with it all. That's what I think they should do with Babylon 5, because they were saying, like, yeah, well, when it goes to high def, all we have to do is pull up the files and just hit render and render them in higher definition. But something happened, and like all of the drives with the CGI on it was supposed to be stored somewhere, and someone didn't store it right, and they got missing or got wiped or something like that. So I mean, they'd have to redo the special effects to get them in high def. But I mean, that's ultimately what would be great about it. Okay, 5 minutes left. Anyone got anything we can cover a little more quickly? Of course, we haven't been spending a whole lot of time on different subjects this time.
Yeah. Hmm. I don't know. I mean, we talked about some pretty good stuff.
When a guy did the twist on TV the first time, they cut the feed. Wow.
Really?
Was it Chubby Checker doing the twist? Because that was his song. So he might, or it may have been someone else, but yeah. Come on, baby.
Yeah. And now look at the twist now. Every fucking 4th grade music class, they teach you how to do the twist.
Oh yeah. Like it's difficult,
Yeah, like it's really that fucking hard.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Quentin Tarantino? If you're going to watch, and are going to watch his new film? Yes. And Heather is crazy for him. She's like, yeah, we're definitely going to see it. Although we counted it up. They said it's his 9th film. We keep counting 10.
What is his new film? I haven't heard much
about it. Oh God, what was the title of it? I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head.
Why is Trump still allowed to tweet?
Because he's so much fun. What fun would we have?
I cried at my job looking at Kafev.
Kafifi, whatever that was.
It's like our hamburgers. Oh, that was fantastic.
Well, I mean, the Kafifi, I mean, he was trying to write coffee, obviously, and F and V are right next to each other. So, I mean, it's an easy typo to make. But the thing is, before then, in order to, fix the typo, because you can't edit tweets, he deleted the tweet and then retweeted it with the same typo. And they're like, oh, you can't do that. You can't delete tweets. We need a public record of everything everyone says. And so, okay, well, he just let the typo stand and like, he made a typo. It's like, oh, shut up.
Yeah, it's like, is that really the biggest thing you want to talk about? Of all the important shit that you could talk about, you're going to talk about the fact that a president is having a problem typing a tweet?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we have to distract people from the important stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think anything major is going to happen from the Epstein scandal?
I don't know.
I don't know. But
favorite Tarantino movie, I really liked. Oh God, what was the name of it? That took place during the Civil War. Django Unchained. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
I love that one. That one was good. Hateful Eight was good too.
Speaking of Django Unchained, I heard that when I can't remember, I think it was Golden Globes or the Oscars, like Jamie Foxx got in a little bit of trouble because this was like during the time. of course, this was like during the time where Black Lives Matter was such a huge thing going on, and
Yeah.
he basically said that yeah, it was great working with Quentin Tarantino. I got to kill a lot of white people in the film. He got a little bit of trouble with that.
Yeah. Oh,
'Cause, you
come
know,
on. That's a joke. It's just funny.
It so clearly was, but people that just take politics with Black Lives Matter,
Uh,
they're like, look, see, he said it's okay to kill white people. Why isn't that racist? It's like,
it's just a joke. And I
Yeah,
mean, if you look at Tarantino movies, the violence is just so over the top anyway. It's more like a cartoon violence than, you know.
yeah, it's just it's so clearly over the top, and it's not meant to be taken as like just this serious action film.
Well, and it's like, you know, when he's up on the balcony shooting people and they're being jerked back at 20 miles an hour and it's not even in the direction of the shot, you know?
Yeah, where he shoots Mrs. Candy and she just flies like a 90-degree angle opposite where the bullet came from into the fucking living room.
You can tell he's just having fun with it.
That's what it is. It's
because
just,
that was always kind of dumb in westerns when the guy shoots a bullet in the.
Oh no, I always loved in the westerns
Because they were doing that because Hollywood was trying to convince people that, you know, guns were horrible and should never be used, and so they'd have this crazy thing where you shoot a guy and he flies across the room.
Yeah.
So he's just riffing on that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or like in Kill Bill, you know, all the violence in there where they just bleed and bleed and bleed, you know.
Oh yeah. No, I always
they've got like, you know, enough blood for like 10 people, you know, coming out of
one person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always liked in the old Western films where someone got shot and they just like tensed up, like they got tased and then just fell on the ground. Oh. Yeah.
Taser bullet.
No, I think my favorite thing from the Western era, because my stepfather was a huge John Wayne fan and whatnot. I can't remember the name of the movie. I can only remember the scene when John Wayne and this little boy is by the river, and John Wayne asks the boy can swim. The boy says no, and John Wayne just fucking picks him up and just tosses him in the fucking river.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Oh my god, it was fantastic. He just tosses him in the river, and his mom's just like, he could drown. He's like, well, he's got to learn.
Yep.
It's like, but he needs help. He's like, go in and save him. Well, I can't swim. And then he looks at her, and she just starts running away. It was such a great scene.
Yeah. Magnificent Seven is really good. I didn't see the remake, but the original with Yul Brynner is really good.
Yeah.
I loved the remake of True Grit that the Coen brothers did.
I never watched it.
That was really good. I think that was better than the original. All right, 10 o'clock. Time to sign off. Parting thoughts, anyone?
Fuck government. Is that really what the whole?
Sounds good to me.
There you go. Perfect send off. Fuck government. Freedom for all. Fantastic.
All right, Darth, what you got for us?
I'd just like to say, Shane, I appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Keep educating people. And anyone who's listening out there, I would highly recommend getting LastPass and using very secure, strong, different passwords for every site until Squirrel becomes mainstream. And that's all I have to say.
Cool. Thank you for the kind words. I'm going to sign off, but I have to sign off by ending the Chrome process, and I'm not exactly sure how this is going to happen. So this is going to be very unceremonious, but as usual, stay strong and be free.